good number of youngsters, especially students among us. And this is the right age or right time for everyone to really grasp what it means to be ethical and what it means to take responsibility, I believe. Thanks to Morung Express for inviting me as to be part of the panel discussion. And we're humans, we can't help but compare. Compared to our two co-panelists, they're well-experienced media personalities in Nagaland. Well, I started venturing into media just since about 3 years ago, and still I'm a baby when it comes to this field. But I believe I have a strong vision and passion in the media field. And I want to confess that I'm not from a media background. I did not study journalism or any sort of a mass communication course. But the passion came because I saw human suffering. And when I realized how to resolve this human suffering, I see dialogue and discussion as one of the strongest means to resolve this human suffering together. So that's how I started venturing into the field of media. And I would like to give you a context because I strongly believe in the power of context. When we don't have a context, anything that we see as truth are normally, we conceive it our perception is subject to misinterpretation. So for me, context is very important. Once upon a time, I would say it's not a fiction. In the 1980s, there were two reporters from the New York Times, Nicholas Kristof and Cheryl. They were in rural China in the 1980s, during the time when China imposed a very harsh one-child policy. While they were reporting from rural China, what they saw was a baby girl just thrown or just dumped on the roadside, by the roadside. And it really made me think how they responded to such incident, to such event. Imagine that happened in Nagaland. I can just imagine anyone just picking up the phone, recording the video and shouting everywhere, hey, there's a baby girl here. This is unethical, this is not right, this is not human. Whoever does this, whoever has done this should be punished immediately. And I could imagine the scene just spiraling out with no restraint. But you know what, these two reporters, what they did? After all, they were Pulitzer-winning reporters. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Pulitzer Prize-winning reporters. So what they did, they tried to understand the context. Why the babies were thrown on the roadside, by the roadside like this, with no compassion for a human baby. So what they did was they tried to understand the background of what is happening currently in China. When I was abroad doing my research, I had around 10 Chinese colleagues with me from China. And we played games, like name-calling games. And a quick name call, I would say. And then what happened was the leader called out, please step out if there is anyone among us who is just a single child in the family. And 90% of our Chinese colleagues just stepped out. That means in the 1980s and 1990s, the one-child policy in China was very, very harsh. So these two journalists, reporters from the New York Times, they also analyzed the situation and they reported accurately on what happened without any judgment or preconceived notion. They did not judge whoever has thrown the baby by the roadside. They looked at it from various angles, from the social environment that was around in the 1980s and the political situation that was around in the 1980s. And also, most importantly, they checked what is the policy in China then. And they found out that Chinese government has a very rigid and harsh one-child policy. Because a cultural preference for son was so strong that the baby was just thrown on the roadside. Imagine if they had just started reporting and throwing all their judgmental attitude for such an act. I think their report or their story will not reach to the global stage. But since they reported with ethics and with that responsibility as a journalist, it became a story worldwide, and they ended up winning that Pulitzer Prize award. So the point I'm trying to say here is, before you report anything, before we say anything on certain issue or certain event, it's always good for us to reflect what is going on and what makes this happen. Suppose you see a dead person on the roadside. What would you say? You'll just pick up the phone and cameraman will come and you'll start reporting. While we race for sensationalism, while we race for the first to be the reporter on this news, and while we race for all that, let's say to get the highest views, for example, to get the on YouTube, in YouTube context, to get the to become the most subscribed channel, I think sometimes I feel that we lose the content, we lose the context of what we are doing and why we are doing that. So sometimes I think a lot. Sometimes if I see a bad road, in a very dilapidated condition, what would you do? We would just pick up the microphone and we'll start speaking about the bad road there immediately. But why can't we also talk about what made that bad road? What is responsible for that road to be really, really bad? So it's always important to critically think and ask questions why certain thing happens at certain time. And I think when we start researching that, we will always get the wonderful answers, not just becoming a voice that complains, but a voice that analyzes. When I was in my university days, our director came and scolded all of us because we were so enthusiastic and we're having so much zeal to become social rights activists. And every student acted like as if they are an activist. And like we would stand up for LGBTQ rights, we'll stand up for everything under the sun that we perceived as injustice. So our director came and scolded us. You all have become more reactionary, more reactive rather than analytical. And that really struck me really hard. How analytical we are. So the purpose of becoming an analytical reporter or analytical personality is to dig deep and find the truth. So at the end of the day, I believe that media's role is to inform the public about the truth of something. And when we miss the truth, there's no point. I might get like 5 lakhs views in just 1 hour. It doesn't make sense. But as long as we are able to report the truth and make our audience understand the context of why certain thing is happening at certain time, then it will make sense and it will inform the public in a very fair, logical, and analytical manner. And that's how we educate the public to understand issue in a very, very holistic manner. If we don't do that, like the 2 journalists in China found the dead baby on the roadside, we'll just resort to our emotional outburst and we lose the substance from such reporting. And as I try to understand media and reporting more and more, I believe that context has become the pillar for us to understand the issue in a very, very appropriate or in the most fair manner at that given point of time. So, media or journalist should be a moral compass without a needle. What does it mean? Like we all should become the moral compass in our society as well, but without a needle. Without a needle, what I mean by that? Without a needle, we don't have to be pressured by or any sort of clickbaits or any sort of propaganda and agenda. So be a moral compass, but don't have that needle, so that you would not go wherever you are pressured, because the needle will go wherever it is pressured, wherever it is directed to. And media should play a role as an interpreter and translator of human suffering. I believe in that. And I did not venture into media wanting to report events or wanting to do some discussion. But I believe that through discussion and dialogue, if only we can alleviate human suffering, That includes our local context, like the suffering that people are going through in Nagaland, for instance. The suffering that we as minority in religious term, or in social term, or even in political term, the suffering that comes along with being a minority is huge. So I started venturing into media. How can we alleviate those suffering? I think the purpose, the only solution is to educate people, educate each other, and when we learn something about the nature of the struggles that we're going through, then we will take action individually and also collectively. And that's how we resolve the issue together. That's what I strongly believed, and I'm still believing in that. And I hope we can make a media ethics and responsibility in a changing landscape a powerful thing to discuss, a powerful thing to pay attention to. Not just a cliche for the sake of discussion, but something that we all hold on to and live our life with that. And I believe that a lot of you are from media background also, and mass communication background, and some of you may not be also. But as responsible citizens, we have phone in our hand, internet in our hand. I strongly also believe in the idea of citizen journalism. And by that, you don't have to randomly pick up phone and report. Analyze it, see from the two sides of the story, and present it to the public. And let public be the judge of what's happening. So our duty is mostly to present the facts and the truth after analyzing it from every angle. If I were to rush in getting to report the thing, then there is high chance of making a mistake or leaving out the core truth of the matter behind. So it's a very serious business. I believe it's a very, very sacred platform that we are all trading upon. So I wish and I want to encourage all of us to be mindful of the context and to know how to interpret certain events at the right time and for the right purpose. Thank you so much.